Alright, boyos, we gotta make the Cybermen scary again. What do you got? Okay, so hear me out. What if we had a giant one stomping around Victorian London? No, what you've gotta do is have them fly and run really fast and be zombies. Okay, well those are all great, but I'm thinking, what if they wiped out the entire human race? For real, guys, this is so much easier than you're making it. What's crack-a-lackin', my fellow home dogs? It's your old pal Channel Pup. So, I just watched the first part of the Doctor Who Series 12 finale, Ascension of the Cybermen, and while I had some fun with it, it did draw a big fat red ring around a major recurring problem in Doctor Who for me. The Cybermen are no longer interesting. Ascension of the Cybermen does the absolute best it can to make the Cybermen feel like an actual threat again, but it fails on almost every single conceivable level to get the Cybermen actually right. Now, it doesn't go out and get them completely wrong either. This is a strange case. Now, I'll give writer Chris Chibnall a little credit for attempting to do something a bit different with the lone Cyberman being a poorly upgraded Cyberman fanatic at odds with his own existence. That's a good villain and a good basis for a Cyberman story. But we've got that. And then we've got the Doctor and the companions lost in space, a whole fleet of ordinary Cybermen awakening, the destroyed remains of Gallifrey emerging, the Master's return, the answer to the mystery of the Timeless Child, an invincible Irish police officer, and possibly the return of the fugitive Doctor, unless they just want to leave that elephant in the room firmly unaddressed for another year, which is a long time considering Verjoids are shitting rainbows over this, probably more so than anything else. The lone Cyberman, a really interesting villain, is thoroughly smothered in all of this, unless writer Chris Chibnall, repeat, barely experienced occasional sci-fi writer Chris Chibnall, is able to pull a very large rabbit out of a very, very tiny hat, because there's very little room in this story ahead for the most interesting aspect of that story to actually breathe. He's got this goal of the Cybermen ascending, whatever that means. I'm guessing it's the rise of the Cyber Empire. And he succeeds, but I'm not sure how I'm supposed to care about that when we immediately follow that up with Gallifrey returning and the Master returning. And not just any Master, my boy Sacha Dhawan is back. Can I just take a moment just to say how much I love this guy in this role? So other than the lone Cyberman, the Cybermen as the threat of this story serve just that purpose, but it's starting to become very apparent to me that the Cybermen have lost their overall identity within the Doctor's Rogues Gallery. They look great with their new costumes and the way Doctor Who is filmed these days, and they have their Series 2 voices back. Sorry. They work well as a large-scale threat. Heck, as far as large-scale Doctor Who stories go, this is done really well, and the Cybermen do feel like a real threat, don't get me wrong, but that's all there is to them. They're a threat. They whiz around the galaxy doing conquest, wiping out other races, shooting lasers, yelling their catchphrase, absurdly advanced. Yep, the Cybermen are Daleks now. It really feels like this could have been a Dalek story, where they simply swapped the Daleks out with the Cybermen, as absolutely nothing is actually done with the Cybermen as an overall concept. Heck, we don't see the Cybermen even attempt to upgrade anybody in this story so far. We see a load of Cybermen awaken, but are there even people in there? Because this is like implied to be their first time awakening and they're all aboard this giant ship, but we don't have any answer as to whether or not there's humans in there. Are we doing the Pandorica Opens thing of having Cybermen able to operate without upgraded humans? I'll be real, I would rather get no answer to that question than the wrong answer, to be completely honest. But if there's no answer, it doesn't really remedy the fact that the Cybermen are essentially robots as far as this story's concerned. They stomp around having nearly wiped out all of humanity. Ah, guys, I thought your mission was to preserve humanity. Seriously, how good of a Dalek story would this have made? God knows we need a good large-scale Dalek story with lots of death more than we need yet another Cyberman and Master crossover. Let's see, we got 3 murderous Cybermen that want to ascend, whatever they mean by that, led by the lone Cyberman. Then we have our first encounter with the Cybermen, which comes in the form of cyber drones, which are these flying heads with laser eyes. Then we see some cyber ships and how those are piloted. Like, it's all grab bag murderous empire fun, but honestly, it feels like the lone Cyberman guy was just included because writer Chris Chibnall was busy swapping the Daleks out for the Cybermen and was like, oh god damn it, the Cybermen upgraded people, didn't they? Okay, well, I guess we'll have one of them only be semi-upgraded, and he'll be the catalyst for all of it. It's better than nothing, but before we know it, we've got the lone Cyberman for some reason torturing other sleeping Cybermen, which leads to them just waking up, which is a bit disappointing, as I thought the lone Cyberman's torture method would lead to something, would enhance them, or mess with their emotional inhibitors or something, but nope, it just wakes up the big ol' army of robots for further conquest. I think this is the thing with the Cybermen. The writers regularly want them to kind of rival the Daleks, but too often just make them Daleks. The more advanced the Cybermen are, the less appealing they are as their own entity. Think about previous Cyberman stories in the post-2005 run of Doctor Who. What are the stronger ones and what are the weaker ones? For me, the weaker stories are stories like Nightmare in Silver, another episode that tried to really emphasize the scale of the cyber threat, but failed to make the Cybermen into interesting characters. We have the Cybermen at possibly their most powerful. They've got lasers, they can move with supersonic speed, their numbers have never been larger, but they're lame. Really, really lame. This whole story is so fucking lame. Cybermen moving around with super speed is far less frightening than them slowly stomping about. Them looking like Iron Man and being tiny little specks on screen for a big crowd scene is just fucking lame, guys. And admittedly, I don't think Death in Heaven is a bad episode, but the Cybermen being able to fly was just... It's fucking Iron Man, that's what it is. Apparently making the Cybermen a scary threat is a challenging thing with lots of trial and error. Heck, in the Stephen Moffat era of the show, the treatment of the Cybermen was so weird. We had Cybermen able to upgrade the dead using water. Now they're able to fly. They can operate without even upgrading a human, but having the suit have this weird hunger for a human. Like, they really tried to make the Cybermen interesting in the Pandorica Opens, as this Cyberman head attacks Amy Pond, shooting darts at her, trying to electrocute her with tentacles, throwing the skull inside at her, until the empty cybersuit just picks it up, its own head, and just starts walking around. It's jump scare horror. Okay, good for you. But it isn't really what's actually scary about the Cybermen. Heck, it kind of negates it seeing the Cyberman just able to walk around independently without upgrading anybody. It's just a killer zombie robot now. Now, to be fair, Russell T Davies was pretty guilty of this towards the end of his tenure, resorting to a giant killer Cyber King stomping over Victorian London. I don't see the Cybermen being treated like little bitches in Doomsday as a bad thing. It's a Dalek story where the Daleks just hijack somebody else's invasion, and I'm glad the Cybermen couldn't hold their own against the Daleks. That's what makes the Daleks special. They're the show's resident murder bots. Nobody is supposed to be able to stand up to a Dalek, so what the hell made any of you think the Cybermen could? Now, the Cybermen aren't totally screwed in post-2005 Doctor Who, however, what about the stronger episodes? Rise of the Cybermen, Age of Steel, The World Enough and Time, The Doctor Falls. These two-part stories had a great deal of emphasis not on the Cybermen, but on the people inside the Cybermen, the people that were converted and the horrors of cyber conversion. Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel portray the Cybermen as a more advanced race than what we had seen in, say, 10th Planet, but writer Russell T Davies still absolutely made sure to remind the audience and the Doctor of what makes the Cybermen as scary as they are, the remains of their humanity. For me, perhaps one of the best scenes in modern Doctor Who is when the Doctor and, I'm sorry, I forget what her name is, take down a Cyberman and explore its anatomy, discovering the flesh in the heart and the emotional inhibitor. And when the Cyberman awakens, its emotions and identity are restored, revealing a woman named Sally, who was upgraded to a Cyberman before the day of her wedding. And we saw the torturous, harrowing reality of what a Cyberman really is. The 10th Doctor saw how disturbing this is and put her out of her misery. Heck, the Cybermen's defeat in this story involved the Doctor restoring all of the emotions and humanity to the Cybermen, driving them all nuts, and we have the Doctor apologizing to them as their heads explode out of sheer despair, overloading the cyber augmentation. Which leads me to another thing that really bothers me about the Doctor's attitude towards the Cybermen. The Doctor did this all as a last resort to defeat the Cybermen before they became too much of a threat to the parallel world, but the Doctor has an understanding that when he does this, he's not just defeating the Cybermen, he's restoring the human beings within and driving them to such despair that they can no longer carry on. What separates the Cybermen from the Daleks is that to stop them, the Doctor must destroy innocent human beings that never asked to be upgraded, and the Doctor always takes the path of the most mercy and the least pain. But fast forward to Series 6, the 11th Doctor not only restores the Cybermen's emotions to defeat them, but relishes in their misery. Fast forward to Ascension of the Cybermen in Series 12, and the 13th Doctor's first plan to stop the Cybermen is to restore all of their emotions, driving them to self-destruction. The lack of care for the Cybermen as an actual concept beyond the battle fleet of murder bots really comes across in how the Doctor's attitude towards the Cybermen has been bastardized. In the case of The World Enough and Time and the Doctor Falls, we get a story from the perspective of a converted Cyberman with Bill, and the pain it causes her just to be a Cyberman and to be seen as a monster. We indulge in all of the body horror that the classic Cybermen had to offer, which weren't insanely technological advanced murder bots on the level of the Daleks, but sick human beings that were being unnaturally preserved against their will. I mean, okay, the Doctor does plow through them at the end, happily just blowing them all up, but there's still a more merciful method of defeating them in a pretty desperate situation. The Doctor is as aware as we are that the clock is against them when it comes to the cyber threat, and sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. But having the Doctor react gleefully to Cybermen in despair in the case of the 11th Doctor, or just willingly resorting to that immediately with 13, come on, sit down and rewatch Age of Steel and understand what it is that makes the Cybermen such a horrifying concept. The threat of the Cybermen shouldn't have come from death, but the idea of being quote-unquote upgraded into a walking drip tank feeling nothing for all eternity. Is that not scary enough for us to put a little less emphasis on the whole delete thing and a little more emphasis on the upgrade thing? I'm not saying the Cybermen shouldn't kill, but it's not their shtick. It's not what makes the Cybermen scary or iconic, and the fact that Ascension of the Cybermen presents us with a scenario where the Cybermen have wiped out most of humanity but don't upgrade anybody just means we have a Cyberman story without anything that makes anybody actually care about the Cybermen. It's got nothing of what separates the Cybermen from the Daleks. And that's what it is. It's more like Ascension of the Daleks, because the threat of the Daleks is death. The whole thing with the Daleks is that they are about as skilled a murderer as you'll ever find. That's not what the Cybermen are there for. As far as a silver lining, get it? Goes, sorry. I do feel that Ascension of the Cybermen and the Timeless Children could potentially give way for a massive defeat for a highly advanced fleet of Cybermen, allowing for a reboot of the character. Then they can have them begin anew, their numbers wiped out, their resources few and far between. I want to see the Cybermen take on a practical approach with scraps, like what we had with the Dalek in Resolution. Seriously, Chris Chibnall, everything you have going on with the Daleks and the Cybermen at this point, just swap it around, it'll be much more interesting. I'd rather see the Cybermen ambling around in silver boiler suits with technological augmentations for mobility and strength with far less technological approach. Show us the human behind that augmentation. There's this unused Cyberman design from The World Enough and Time, where the Cybermask itself is just this translucent wrap around a malformed human face with dark holes burrowed into the eyes. Imagine that with kind of a drip pipe going into the nose. You could have bag-like appendages around the chest that inflate and deflate as the Cyberman breathes. Artificial lungs. Have the Cybermen use weaponry such as normal human guns as opposed to lasers, maybe crossbows and maces. The Cybermen are less interesting the more technologically advanced they are, so I want to see a story get really creative with the body horror elements of the Cybermen, portraying them as a more clumsy foe for the Doctor than, say, the more amble Daleks. Make it so that you really wouldn't want to be upgraded into this, and that is where the horror of the Cybermen comes in. What do you guys think? Comment below and discuss, and as always, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, why don't you head over to channelpup.net, where we've got a blog page called Dr. Blogtopus, but as well as that, you can also buy merch, such as this awful t-shirt. But if you want to be a part of the super fun Kennel Club, why not hit subscribe, hit the like button, and in the description below, you can check out the links to my Patreon and my Twitter. I think that would be pretty sweet for both of us. What do you say, champ? But in all seriousness now, thank you so much for watching, my fellow home dogs. Have a great day, because you and I both know you've earned it. I'll catch you next time. That's a cute outfit. Did your husband give it to you? because you could get a way better costume from Zentai Zone. Check out their range of custom-made, tailored superhero costumes. Ridiculously good quality, value, and customization. Link is in the description below, as well as my coupon code CHANNELPUP, where you can get a discount off of your purchase. And while you're at it, why not get your suit designed by my talented buddy Dan from New Blood Dan's workshop? You can contact him via the link in the description below. Seriously guys, you do not want to miss out on your chance to be your favorite superhero and feel authentic and professional. And you don't want to miss out on that Channel Pup discount.